If you haven't used Zoom before, there's a chat function down at the bottom. If you have any questions, you also should be able to unmute yourself if you want to say something out loud, and we'll see. And I'll be recording our session so that I can post it for later. Let me see. Sorry, I'm going to share my screen. But let's see. Okay. I can't tell what you guys are seeing. So send me a message if you're not seeing my screen. And what you should be seeing is, I'm going to bring up Chrome. And I had gone to our final project and downloaded this new Java final PDF. Someone asked earlier, if you've already done this old one, this really complex one, then great job, you're done. I'll probably award extra credit to the people that worked through that, because it definitely has some concepts that we don't work through until Java 2. So I apologize that it was posted incorrectly. And that's why when I spend some time together and help you through this thing, so make sure that you have enough time, because I denied you some of that time. And I don't like that. I hate it when accidents happen. Now, looking at this new final, can you see it? There it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you, you guys. I wasn't sure. I've just used this a couple of times, so it works really cool, but I still have some getting used to do. So our new assigned final is going to be a menu system that's going to be an item inventory. And so we're going to have a short menu to display on the console. And we have some UML information here, and you may need to revise some of this. That's fine, you have that ability. Now we have 3 main classes in this application. I'll start at the bottom. First, the item, and this information is going to be about an inventory item. Keeping it simple, we're going to have an item number, how many are in stock, and the name of the item. Our class is going to have a constructor that expects the item number. It's going to have 2 setter methods, one to set the number of in stock and one to set the name. And it's going to override the system ToString method to output information about our item. We're going to have an item list class, which is basically going to be an array list of the item data types. And we're going to allow some movement through that array list by our users. We'll have a method to add items to the list, find items within the list all of the items in the list. We'll be doing a lot of listing. And finally, our constructor will be just a standard generic constructor with no parameters. Now our menu is going to contain the main, and we're going to have just a couple of class fields for that. We'll have an array, which will be an array of all of these items that are going to display in our menu. And then we'll have a menu choice that's a char data type that will contain the number that the user typed in. We'll have a check choice method that'll interrogate that number and do something with it. We'll have a DisplayMenu method that will display our menu itself. And then, like I said, the main method that's going to control everything. Now, there's some narrative below about how to create the menu class and how to create the item list class and how to create the item class. And of course, we're going to start at the bottom with our item class because it has dependencies from our other classes. So we need to create it first. So I have NetBeans going, and I'm going to start a new project. And I'm going to name this item inventory. And here I wanted to create my main class, but I don't want my main class to be named item inventory. I want it to be that menu class. So I'll let NetBeans do that work for me and say I want that main class name to be menu. I'll finish and let it create that for me. Lazy, I know, it's terrible, it's late. Okay, so now we have our menu class already created. Do again. Now I want to add more to our items in our package. And I don't worry about a package here because we're not going to like upload this to Hypergrade or anything, so it's not going to cause us any trouble. But I'm right clicking on the package and I'm going to add a new Java class, and this will be my item class. Now in the item class I do have some things that we need to add. So first of all, I'm going to update our documentation, and I'm going to do /**, press enter, and that adds those type of comments. Remember that the Java doc system expects and will allow our program to be documented properly. For this, I'm going to say this class is item, and it defines an inventory item. Now looking at, sorry, let me get situated here. Won't let me split things in half very well with my two monitors. Now in our item class, we want to have the item number that's an integer, how many are in stock, and the name. So I'll go ahead and add those to our class. And of course I'm going to make these private. How many we have in stock, and finally our name. So that's all of our class variables that we need. And then we need to have a constructor that just expects the item number. So I'll add that in. It's going to be public and will be my item. And I want an integer, and I'm going to use that as my item number. And I'll say I want to set this item number equal to the item number that was passed into me in the constructor. We also want a couple of other methods. A method to set the number of in-stock items and to set the name. So I'll create those real quick because remember we're only allowing our user to construct an item here with the item number. So we'll add those methods. Now for this one, remember it's not a constructor, so I have to specify my return type. I don't want to return anything from this method, but it's going to set in stock. Is that correct? Sorry, it's late. Set in stock, and it expects an integer. And I'll set this item in stock equal to the one that was passed to us. Same thing for our name. We're going to have a string, and this dot name equals the name they passed us. So that's looking pretty good. We've got our item class. We have our class fields. we have our constructor, set in stock, set name. Now we need to override the ToString. I need to indent all of these. Sorry about that. I'm going to select them all and push tab to indent them under the class the way they should be. And finally, I'm going to do my public string ToString. And in our ToString, I think I'll use a string variable to build the output string. And I'll start out with it equaling, let me check, because I think the specifications say that, what our ToString output is supposed to look like. There it is. So the item number there's our item number. And then we wanted next the name. And I'm going to put a space before that and after it so it doesn't get all smushed together. And finally, I want the quantity on hand. Again, space before and space after, item in stock. And then I want to return that output string. So if anybody ever wants to do a ToString on my class item, this is the information that they're going to receive back. All of that great stuff. Now, we've got our item class here created. I'm going to save all. And if we look back at our UML, we're going to create a class called ItemList that's going to consume that item class. And again, it's just going to be a list of these items. Now, this is where I'm going to leave some of it to you. So we'll be working on some of these methods for the ItemList class, but not all of them, because you wouldn't want it to be like that. You want to do some things. So let's create our ItemList class. Again, in our package, I'm going to right-click and choose New, Java class. Oops. Devin, what are you looking at? Let me check. Oh, yeah, let me fix it. I thought as I was typing that doesn't seem right, but I just forged ahead. Num and num. Thank you guys at this time of night. You'll have to keep me honest. Our name is good. String name. Okay. So yeah, just great if I'm doing something. So we want to create that new class. I'll let you update that. Devin was just sending me a message that this parameter was supposed to be called num on our UML. So I'm going to create a new Java class. And I'm going to call this one ItemList. Now in our item list, I'll do some high-level documentation here. Not super great, but we'll say this is our item list class, and it will create a list of all inventory items. So for this one, hang on, let me look at something we're going to need. A couple of imports, get this right. So we're going to be using our ArrayList. So we're going to import java.util.ArrayList. And we're going to be using a scanner. So java.util.scanner. Now, in our class, our data fields that we're going to create are pretty minimal, just this array list. So I'll create it. And we're going to call it ItemList or items. So I apologize, the UML has some lowercase in some places on our class names. So we should keep our classes uppercase. So if there is a problem like that, I apologize. And I'm not going to actually allocate that array list until we're in our constructor. And then in our constructor, we'll create an instance of that list. Now, I'd like to add something that's not in the UML. So as I mentioned, we might be modifying it a little bit. And this is just going to be a data element, a class field that we're going to use. And we're going to call it, it's going to be an integer, sorry. And we're going to call it next item number. And we're just going to use this to increment to make sure we don't use the same item number over and over. So it is neglectfully, woefully missing from the UML. So when I filled out any information to turn this in, I would say that. We could even put a comment, huh? Missing from UML. So now we know we've added it. Okay, so in this class, we need a constructor. And we don't need any parameters, any data in that constructor. And all we're going to do is set up our next item number. And we'll start at 1, but you can start at any number you would like, just to make things interesting if you like. And then we will allocate our items array list. I really think I'm going to make this lowercase I. Sorry about that, because it's not a class. So our items is a new array list. And that should be all we need in our constructor. So now if we create an instance of this class, we're going to create an array list that's ready to hold instances of items, or at least that's what we're going to put in it. Now, the method that we need more than anything, if we look at our UML, is probably our AddItem, right? Because if we have the AddItem method working, then we'll be able to add things to our array list. So we're going to work through that method real quick. And make sure that matching our UML. We want it to be AddItem with no parameter. Now in this method, we're going to actually use this class to prompt the user for input as to what this product's item information should look like. So in general, we've always kept our prompting for input in our main. So this is an example for you of how we can move that a little bit to facilitate organizing things in the appropriate class. First, we're going to allocate our scanner. And of course, since we don't use a lot of console apps necessarily in the real world, can't really say whether this is heavily used or not. System.in. And I named my scanner as C just to be difficult. And then I'm going to send out some print. Please enter information for new item, comma. And then I'm going to go ahead and tell the user what that item number is going to be, like what number it's going to get assigned. So we'll say that's going to be our next item number. And then I'm going to output a little bit more. And I think I'm going to kind of indent a little bit and say what is the item's name I'll set up a string to read that in. We'll try a next line. And then I'm going to output another message. I'll tab again and say, what is the quantity on hand? And this one will be expecting an integer. And I'm just going to name this variable temporarily. So we want to do that next int. Okay, so now in our add item so far, we've set up a message, and then we've prompted for the name, and we've prompted for the quantity on hand. Now we know in our constructor, we're only expecting the one parameter, so we're only going to be able to create that as our class. So I'm going to go ahead and create that item. And I'm going to call it the new one, or just new one, and say that this is a new item, and what we want to pass into it as an item number is our next item number that we have saved. So that looks good. We've created an instance, but it only has an item number. We need to update it now with the name. So I'm going to use the setName method and pass in that name that we've read in from the user. And then I'm going to update that new one, that new item again, and use the setInStock method to pass in that quantity on hand again from our user. So look how nice it is. Finally, now that I've got our item completely built, I'm going to use our ArrayList and use its add method and add in this new one, this new item. So now we should have, if we execute this, we should have an item in our list. To make sure that our item number is always unique, or at least for each run, I'm going to go ahead and add to our next item number. Now, as I look at this class and this method and the item class, I think I'd really like to do some testing here. So we have quite a bit of code already. So I'm going to go to our menu, Java class, and do a little bit of preliminary testing in this class. So it's not necessarily going to be exactly our end result stuff, but at least we can try some things and see how stuff works. So the first thing I want to do is, we could have done this already before we worked on our item list, but I try to keep everything a little bit cohesive. I'd like to create an item. And I'll pass in some weird number because we're not using our helper class there, that list. And then I want to just print it out. So I'll use the ToString method in that thing. So I'm just going to print new item. Now, this is going to test basically really just our item class. So let's try running it. And mine did do something. It created an item, and it looks like it was successful because it has item number 45, which is the number that I passed it, a null name, and 0 for the quantity on hand. So it did create that instance. So I'm going to get rid of that. That was a good test. Now I want to see if I can create an instance of our item list. I'll call it my list. And remember, our item list constructor doesn't require any parameters. So we just created a new instance of our item list class. Now we would like to test our add. Here's our awesome add item method that we've created. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Now see if we can run it. So we should be creating an instance of our item list, and then we're going to use that add item method to be prompted for our information and see if we can get that item properly added. Okay, so I've got the prompt that I'm expecting. It says it's going to be item number 1. What's the item's name? I'm going to make my item one word. My item is Martha, and I have 23 of those. So it looks like did something and it got done. I'm going to take a look at that. I would like to go ahead and output information about my item. So let me look at my item list. I think right here, as we add the new one, at the end of this thing, I'll go ahead and print it out just for now. And it's going to be new one at this point is the name of our item. So this test should be just the same, where it prompts me for information, but then I should see the information output about our new class instance that we've created. So Joey 23, and sure enough, there it is. I've got my item number and the name of my item and how many are on hand. So everybody okay? You're good, you're good, you're good? Thank you. Let me know if you need anything. Oh, awesome. Okay, well, good, that's good. I'll go with it. All right, now we've got this great test going and everything is looking good. So let me take a look at our UML. So what we did here in our item list, we've created the add item method and we've created the item list method. We haven't created the find item and the list item because those are ArrayList methods that shouldn't be too awfully awful. But instead of spending all of our time on those, I wanted to work a little bit on our menu before it got too much for everybody. So in our menu class, we have this method called DisplayMenu, and it's going to read through this array of all of our menu items. So let's see if we can get that created. I'm going to go to our menu class, and I'll fix my comments up here. Menu class to display a menu. So the idea here is that this menu is just going to keep redisplaying until our user finally picks 5 or X or whatever number it is that is going to get them out of the menu. But we want to create some class level fields, some instance variables of our menu item options. Now, just to make our lives easier, because we're working with our main in this class, we're going to make everything static. And remember, the keyword static gets introduced to you so early in Java that it doesn't really mean a lot to you. But what we're saying is that we're working with, why not? Let me undo. Sorry, I'm talking and thinking, and that's not working, huh? But what we're saying is we're only going to have one instance of this menu class in memory, which is fine because we can work with that one instance in memory. It's going to display what it needs to. The user's going to pick what they need to. We don't have any sort of major updates going on inside the data for this menu, so that should be all right. So the reason I say we need to make everything static is because we're working with our main. And our main, when we're working with Java, is always a static method. I do not need to make our class static, however. I was going to do that, and I don't need to. But I do need to add an import. And we're going to use the scanner in this class also. Now, let's create our array. It's going to be static, and it's an array of strings. And we're going to call it menu items. So I'm going to declare, or go ahead and set up this array and allocate it by hard-coding the values in the code. So the items that we're going to have are create an item, and you can go down if you like. I don't want to because it'll get us down too far. You won't be able to see enough code. Search for an item, update an item, which, by the way, in the documentation it says that will not be tested. List all items, and finally exit. Now these are going to be our entries in our array, and they'll match up with our menu. So we should be able to just display this menu super easy using the array. Now I want another element, and it's going to be a char data type, and this is going to be our menu choice. And this is the choice the user picked, and we're going to start with 0. And remember, if it's a char data type, we have to always enclose things in single quotes. All that early book knowledge, huh? Now, the next thing that we need looking at our menu item, we want to create some sort of display of the menu. So let's put that in our main. Right now I have all of these items here that are ready to be displayed. So I think I'm going to try it. Da, 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 da. Okay. Delete out all that code we were using to test. And I'm going to put everything within a while true loop. And we want to use our method DisplayMenu that we haven't created yet. And check choice that we haven't created yet. And then if the choice they pick is 5, we're going to do that terrible thing and break out of this never-ending loop. And I say it's a terrible thing, but it's fine when we're doing an endless loop like this. So I need to create these other methods. The DisplayMenu method is going to be pretty simple. I'm making it public, but we could probably make it private because we're just using it within this class. It does not return any value, so I'll make it void. So when we display this menu, I'm going to allocate our scanner or set it up. Then I'm going to output a message that says something like, I'm going to put a couple tabs, \t, our item inventory. And so I'm visualizing this as kind of being centered above all of these menu items so that it has some sort of heading. And I'm going to use a for loop, And I'm going to control the for loop using an integer named I. And I'm going to start with I set to 0, while I is less than the length of our array. And each iteration I want to add to I. So in our for loop, we're just going to output the menu choice. So the first thing we need is the value of I plus 1. So if I is 0, I want it to print out 1. If I is 1, I want it to print out 2, etc. So it looks like our menu. Then I'm going to add a dot after that, like our menu looks. I'll go ahead and put a space after that period. Then I'm going to add a little bit more. Using our menu items array, I want the element at position I. After displaying it, I'm going to use the scanner to get next. But we made this a char data type. So as I look at things, it's mad at us as far as trying to go directly from the scanner's next, which would return a string, into our char data type. And it's very nicely got this char at right here for us. And that is what we need. And we want the character at position 0 because we only want that first letter that they typed in. So if they type in extra letters, we're going to ignore those and we're just going to get that first letter. So the first letter that they type in will turn into a char data type and we'll place that into our menu choice variable. So that builds our menu. Let's test it. In order to test it, I'm going to comment out. Let's just create a header for that. Don't need to comment it out. Public. Okay, so that we've got that header in and it's not really doing anything, but at least it'll keep us from having an error. Now, the way we have this set up, let's see if choosing a 5 will get us out. We'll try because we're missing a little bit of our code. So as we run, there's our menu. So it displays our heading and then each of the items in our menu array with the number choice that goes along with them. So I'll just go ahead and choose a number 5 to exit because that's really the only thing that we have implemented right now. And that did take us out of our loop, so everything looks to be working there. So in our check choice, I would like to be able to see what they typed in, number that they typed in, which we've saved in our menu choice variable. And based on that, I want to call the appropriate methods in our list class. So for us to be able to do that, we need to create our list. So let's do that. I'm going to call it this list, which might be a way too many lists, but we'll try it. So we're saying that when they choose a choice, we want to create a new instance of our item list. I've hit a problem here, but we'll see if that is a problem or not. Now, after we make our new list, we want to decide what to do based on that item. So if our menu choice is 1, we want to use the add of our list. So the rest of it we don't have quite implemented yet. I'll put a comment down here. So 2, we would run our FindItem method. If we got a 3, we would say something like not implemented. That's the update. You can implement that if you like. If we got 4, we would choose list items. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and put this in. If it didn't match any of those others, it's probably 5, but we're going to make sure that it's 5. So what I'm concerned about is that the way the UML is set, we don't have this list as a class level variable, but we really need for it to be, because we really only want one instance of this list no matter how many times our menu executes, because we have to make sure that we're adding to the same list. If we keep creating a new instance of it, we could be in trouble. So I'm going to move this executive decision, and I'm going to put it up here with our other class level variables. And again, say the UML needs to be updated. And that's why we usually say things like that when projects are assigned, because sometimes as a programmer you find a much better way to handle things, and as long as it doesn't, mess up things, then that's okay. All right, so now it's bad. Okay, so it's saying a non-static variable, and I do want just one copy, so I do want it to be static, and then I should be okay. So I've made 3 updates to the UML. I've added this list, which obviously was an oversight on their part, right? Because how are we supposed to keep track otherwise? And the others are in our other classes. That one was okay. In our item list, we added our next item number. So I'm going to go back to our menu now and see how things are looking. Our main is fully coded. We're displaying our menu, checking the choice. Our menu choice notice is being used by this method as well as our check choice method. So in our check choice method, the only thing we have implemented is item number 1. Let's test it. Okay, so I've got my menu. I'm going to choose item 1. And it's going to say, what do you want this item's name to be? We'll make it be peanuts. And we have 23 boxes. And it displayed that. We still have that output coming out from our add method that shows the item that was created. I'm going to stop. And what I'd like to do is run using the debugger and check and make sure that I can get like multiple items in my list, because we don't have our displays implemented yet. So I think that I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint at the display menu. And now that I've got that breakpoint set, I'm going to debug this project. And it's sitting here now waiting for me at my display menu. I'll step into hang on, I don't know if my scanner is static. We'll check it. No. Oh, good. Okay. So I'm going to keep stepping. So right now I'm allocating out that scanner. And then I'm going to output the heading and then loop through all my menu items. Now I could look at my variables anytime. And here's my scanner. I want to look at all sorts of stuff about it. Our static class. Here's our menu items array. Each of those things showing up in there. So I'm going to continue on. And find my output. And it's sitting here waiting for me to do something. So I'm going to choose number 1. And I'm going to keep stepping. Check choice. It's going to go to our add item, set up the scanner, prompt for the item's name. I got to go to my output to find it. Flower. And then if I step appropriately, it will prompt me for the quantity on hand. 12. And then I will stop. Now I'm going to allocate my first item. So we should see it. It's in the constructor, and then it comes back to the caller saying, okay, I created it. Now we're going to use our setName method to update the name. Let's look at it. Here's our this. Here's our item. It's updating the in stock. And finally, adding this item to our array. Here's our array of items. If I look at it, I see the first item and expand it, and I can see the information about that item. So what I'm wanting to do is making sure I get 2 of these. I think I could have picked a better place to set a breakpoint, but I will persist. And now I'm going to be back to displaying the menu. I'll go through that loop. It's sitting at my waiting for me. And I'm going to choose number 1 again. And keep stepping. It's reading it. It's going to check it. Finally goes to our add item. Now in our add item, when it prompts me, this time I'm going to do something different. That one was a flower. Let's do a cactus. And I have one of those. And it goes through my constructor to build the item. And then it updates the name using the setter and updates the quantity using the setter. And finally adds this item to our list. Now that is what I was wanting. So I want to see that list. So here's our items list. And now, yes, we have 2 items in our list. And I just wanted to make sure that we were not somehow reallocating one of our lists so that things were getting reinitialized, and we weren't getting that good value. So I'm going to stop there. Sorry for the never-ending step through. Should have picked a better place. And if we stop there, that would leave you oh, yep, Jonathan, the menu items should be private. Let me stop here. Turn that off. Make those private. Even our list, because there's no need for it to not be. And according to the UML, all of those methods should be private also. I don't know if we can do that to our main. Might break it. Let's see. Yep, can't do that. It's another UML problem. That's what you get from using Visio that puts a negative sign in front of everything. All right. So don't worry, I won't get counted off for that one because it won't let you do anything different there. All right, so if we leave it there, that would leave for you these two methods, ListItem and FindItem. ListItem, you would just do a for loop to loop through the array using the ToString method to output the information about each item. So it should just be a few lines of code. For the FindItem, it's a little bit more involved. And for the FindItem, I believe you'll find another area where you feel it's important to change the UML, and that is to allow for a get item number, really, method so that you could get the item number, because otherwise you can't really see if that item is found in the list. So how do you feel about those two? Sure. That's the hard one, though. Let's do it. Yeah, we can do it. And there's so many ways that we can do it, the search. And really, if you take Java 2, you'll see there's some really neat built-in things with Java classes and things that we can do to create comparison routines to do really, really fast and quick searches. But we haven't really seen those kinds of things yet. So the best thing for us to do is a step-by-step look at every item in the array to decide if it matches the one that we're looking for. So that's going to be in our ItemList class. So in our ItemList class, yeah, the contains, it's just, we have to build some special methods, override methods for our classes to make that work properly with the compare to operators in Java. So we don't need to do that. We're not quite there yet. So we'll do it kind of, let's say, the old-fashioned way without any built-in class help. So this one is going to be called FindItem, and we have it set to be public. And it's not going to return anything, but it does expect an integer, that item number, to be passed in. So as I was working on it, I decided that that was dumb because we already have used the scanner in this class. And as we look at our menu, Java, we don't really want to be adding, user input and stuff into these methods that we already have pretty well created, and they're doing a specific job and they're doing a great job at it. So I feel that I should change that UML again. So I'm going to do it. So in the item list, when we are doing the find item, I'm not going to ask for a parameter. Instead, I think I'm going to prompt the user for the number that they would like to find. So I'm going to create a scanner object. I'm going to set up a Boolean variable to let me know if I've found the item or not. Set it to false. Then I'm going to output a message, or a prompt basically, asking the user to please enter the item number to search for. No, I know there's got to be better English than that, but I'm missing it. Then I'm going to read that integer in as that item number. Sometimes it listens to me, sometimes not. So I've got that item number now that the user wants to find, and I'm going to use a for each loop. Haven't used those a lot. They're really handy. So the way a for each loop works in Java, if you remember, is we say for something. So we're going to say for each object, we want to call it this item, and we want to do that for each thing in our items array. So that syntax uses the colon. So the item before the colon is what the instance will be called within our for loop, and the item after the colon is the collection that we're going through to look at each item in there. Because our items are actual items, instances of our item class, we're going to call them objects. If we try to use the word item, try it. Because we know that's what they are, right? They're each an item. It won't let us. Java says, no, that's incompatible. So I'm going to have to call it an object to get through that. So in that for loop then, the thing that I'm going to be looking at is going to be called this item. We're going to have a lot of items, in case you hadn't noticed. So as soon as we get this item, we know we want to make it into one of our items. So let's call it new item now, and we're going to cast this item as an item. So like I said, lots of items. So we're starting out with this item. It's the instance that we found in the items array. So for this item, we would like to cast it as an object of our item class type, and we would like to create that object in the name new item. Now, once we've created it, we can access the data inside of it. So this is where I think that we would be really handy to be able to get the item number. We could make it public or protected, and then we would be able to get to it from other instances in our project. But we've already created set methods for our other variables, so we should be consistent and use getters and setters. So I'm going to say for this new item, we want to get its item number, and that's going to be a method. And we haven't created it yet. And that item number, we're going to see if it matches the item number that the user said they wanted to see. And if it does, we're going to update our Boolean. And we're going to print it just for testing to make sure that we've got it. So if we, for each object, if it matches the one that they're looking for, we found the one that they're looking for, we're going to print out its information. Now, if we don't get an object like that, when our for loop is completed and we've gone through that whole list, if we're still not looking at an item found, then we're going to output a different message. Item number does not exist. And that should clear us up there. Now, the only issue we have here is that we don't have this get item no method. So let's go create it. This is going to return an integer. And I'll put a comment. My bad. Well, I'm just putting all sorts of mess there. So it would be possible to do it the way the UML is set up, just not quite as cleanly and going along with the way the rest of the project is set up. So now if I go back to my item list, that error should go away. Our FindItem method should be complete. We've set up a scanner and a Boolean. We've prompted the user for an item to search for, and we're just looping through all of those items to see if we find that item number. So let's go to our menu and implement that. We said here in our comments that 2 was going to be find item. So if my menu choice equals 2, we're going to use our FindItem method, and we're just going to prompt them for it. Why are you mad at me? Find item. There, it found it. Sometimes that means it's so slow, but I do see a problem. I need to have the single quotes around that too. Okay, that should have gotten rid of all the errors. So let's try running it. So here's our menu. First, I've got to create a couple items, or I won't have anything to find. So I'm going to create one, yellow, and create another one, purple. And then I will search for an item. Excuse me. I will try 1 first because we know we created it. Oh, and there it is. It came out. It's my yellow. So that worked. So I think I will search for another item. And I'll search for 13. We shouldn't have that item. And it comes out, item number 13 does not exist, and it doesn't crash. That's good. So that's what we want. So everything looks good there. So I'll do a 5 to exit. And that will leave you with the list all items method. So you should be able to get that one in. And again, I apologize for our confusion, and I hope that that will make it to a point where you can get the final done and actually make it a learning experience instead of a jumping off a bridge experience or something, because that's definitely not what I want. Go from there. Any questions before we go? No problem. Thank you guys for coming. I'll try and do it more often. Zoom, I just finally got access to, and I think it's working great. We did a problem project for the C# class a couple weeks ago, and they really enjoyed it. And I was wondering, you guys have just all been so independent, you didn't need any help. So I kind of forced you to need help. So glad I could do that. So you guys have a great night. I'm going to sign off. And like I said, we'll have a recording. So I'll post this to YouTube if you have any trouble. It'll take me a little while, but feel free to email me if you come up with any questions. So thanks. Bye. How do I make it stop? There it is. Bye.